Today's guest is Judy Greiman, the 2024 winner of the Presidential Award for Extraordinary Service to Stony Brook University and an inspiring human being, who it is my great honor to interview for this episode as she shares her experiences finding the way forward. Glad you could join us for this unforgettable conversation. Let's start off with saying hello, Judy. How you doing?
Hi, Vern. I am doing well. Doing well.
Well, it's
Happy to
nice
be
to
here.
nice to see you too. Nice to meet you too. And we'll start it right off with just I'll just ask the first question I ask everybody is what is the out of the blue event that's what the primary one that we're going to talk about, because I know there's going to be probably more, but let's talk about the first one, not the very first one chronologically, but the first one that maybe brings you to our show. What would that be?
Sure. I think the one that brings me to the show is that out of the blue, almost exactly a year ago, I learned that I had metastatic, so stage 4 breast cancer. That was kind of evolving over a couple weeks, like, oops, you have breast cancer. Oops, you have something else. With test upon test. And so going from very healthy, by the way, 6 perfect mammograms, to I have stage 4 cancer was a bit out of the blue.
That sounds devastating. I mean, to go from 0 to 4, that's like, whoa. I
Yeah.
mean, I can definitely understand that. It's sort of similar to, getting a leukemia diagnosis. There's no like, you can't be a little leukemia.
Give me a little, right? Yes.
And in leukemia, it's unfortunate. There aren't even stages. It's just
Mm.
one thing. Leukemia, you got it. You hit the number.
Oof.
But so go on. So stage 4 hit you, and then what life altering things began? I mean, you must have went through a period. Tell me what happened.
Sure. Then, lots of tests and lots of biopsies. And then I went through a course from about July through October of chemotherapy. Lost my dark curly hair, and now I have this chic, little
Well,
gray
it's actually
hair.
pretty stylish. It looks nice to me.
As my daughter says now, as it's growing back, she said for a few weeks you looked like kind of a cancer kid, but now you look like a cool mom. I'll take it.
It's not bad. I went bald for a little. I went bald just for about a minute. And when they hit me with it, it sort of made my hair fall out when the first chemo, when I went through the transplant, and my hair
Yep.
fell out, and I was bald for a while. And I kind of got into it actually. I made jokes like, the space station could see me from space when they gleamed, but I really missed my hair. It was good to get it back, and I came back without. I was fortunate. Nothing. I had some gray before it went. When it came back, it didn't have gray. I don't understand that one.
Mine's coming back straight, which is very weird because it was very
It was curly.
Mhm,
Well,
mhm.
that's interesting.
Right. But went through that, and then had a number of side effects that I'm still working through
Yeah.
from the chemo, and then now am on kind of lifetime medication. And when the one I'm on right now doesn't work, I shift to another one and another one. So, there are a number of medications that people in my situation can go on. They get progressively harder to manage.
Yeah. Is
But
this
I've
sort of a
been
chemo pill of some kind?
they're like that. And then actually at some point you go back on chemo. But what they're supposed to do is to both keep other cancers from coming. And also, I still have one metastasis in my neck. And so to keep shrinking that. The other
Right.
out of the blue that I learned in those few weeks was that I have this gene mutation that we had no idea. No idea. And so it makes you more likely to get breast or ovarian cancer. Nobody in my family had it. Thank God my sisters don't have the gene mutation. My mother died very young, which truly we'll get to. And so did she have it? We don't know. So that was the other sort of piece of it. And for me, I work through all of this. I have a very busy job, but I love it. And so for me, it was a way to sort of keep my sanity and remember who I am, which is I'm not a cancer patient. I'm, a thriving person.
I think this is information that helps to know the journey and what you go through because, and I love what you said about you're not identifying yourself as a cancer patient, and I think that's really so important to for anyone who's going through it or knows a loved one is going through it or you don't want people to don't look at them that way. Nobody wants to be labeled that. It's not a,
Right.
it's only a thing we're dealing with. It doesn't mean it's what we are. We don't identify that way.
Right.
But go ahead.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, to me, again, for me, it tested the kind of foundation of who I am and skills that, I developed over the course of my life in terms of dealing with setbacks or out of the blue. My so I said my mother died when I was 8, and at that time, which was out of the blue, she
That's young
yeah
to lose your
yeah
mom. Not that at any age. I mean, there's no. I lost my mom when I was in the hospital, but I mean, still,
oh,
I still don't. You know, she was 92, and I still
mm,
feel like I wish she stayed till now. I mean,
of course,
there's
of
never you
course,
never want to say bye to mom.
no,
And I never
um,
did. I still think I still feel her around me, but
same.
yeah.
But for me, that was actually out of the blue. I didn't know she had cancer. Um, and she went into the hospital in June and died in September.
Oh
And
my goodness.
so,
So you were
um,
8 years old when you experienced the first one,
yes.
first
And what
experience like this.
and I had 2 sisters, one younger, one older. And what my dad said was, this is sad, obviously, but A, together we'll get through this. And B, we're not going to define you as the kid who lost her mom, right? That you need to go live a life. You need to embrace, joy. You need to go be a happy person. And this isn't how you need to define yourself. And I think that out of the blue experience, for me, gave me a real foundation for frankly dealing with anything, right? And so, in this case, people say to me, well, how can you be so upbeat? How can you have so much energy? And for me, it's about exactly what you said. I don't want to be defined as the cancer patient.
Right.
I'm still Judy. My goal in life is to, embrace joy, bring joy to others. And so the two sort of have this interesting connection because I think in both cases, it was how do I live my life and not be defined by this one thing?
That's amazingly wonderful. I immediately start relating to it, and I can honestly say that I think I didn't. You do you think when it happened to you when you were 8, you didn't recognize it at that moment? When you're that young, maybe you did. I'm wondering if you did. Did you recognize at that moment that it was out of the blue? I mean, you thought of it like this is so random and so. Oh, how could this be? I mean, I know that it just must have takes the rug out from underneath you, right? And that's the first thing that happens with out of the blue. You kind of lose your vertigo. You're like floating in air. And
Right.
when you had that experience with your mom, go on from there.
Yeah. I mean, I think from there, it really was about, I had this incredible dad who really said to these 3 little girls, we got this. Like, again, this is sad, but we've got this and we're a strong family and you need to live your lives. You need to, again, this doesn't have to be who you are. And I mean, I know women who lost their moms, 40 years ago, and that's how they still
Yeah.
talk, right? It is not how I framed my life. And for me, I think that the cancer piece really helped to show me that, oh yeah, that really is a foundation of who I am. Like
Wow.
I kind of, you know, I mean, we were talking about other out of the blue experiences. I've had a lot of out of the blue professional experiences. And I think it's been that same sort of even keel of, I can do this, you know, it's a huge challenge, whatever, I'll figure it out. And so I
Amazing.
really tried and sort of said to myself a year ago, one, I'm not going to be defined by this. Two, I'm going to keep being kind of who I am. And I'm going to, you know, I mean, I worked just about every single day through chemo, and I happened to work in a university with a cancer center across the street. I would work in the morning and then walk over to the cancer center, and people would say, do you want us to drive you? No, I want to walk, no matter how wiped out I was with my computer, you know, and they would say, we're going to give you the meds that make you sleepy, put the computer down.
Oh
You
my gosh.
know,
Yeah.
I love it though.
you know,
Yeah. It
but,
does.
and also like, to me, you know, it's stage 4. There's no cure. I'm never ringing a bell. But there are meds that help to control it. And so it's also kind of redefining what's hope, you know,
Yeah.
how do you help your family understand that the word remission is never going to be used for me. The word cure is never going to be used for me, but I'm still me, and I'm still going to live a big, full life. And so, you know, that's the stuff that I committed to last year. But again, I think it was all testing these foundations that I got a long time ago.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Um, I don't know about this word cure and remission and all those things. I wonder about those myself, you know. Does it really, it's just as much of a label as cancer.
Right.
You know, I
Right.
mean, every day of your life that you live, you're healed. I mean, you're out here giving positive things to the world, your family, and right now on Out of the Blue, to someone who doesn't know you listening to this or watching this and getting this inspiration from your life. I mean, if you're doing that, that's being more alive than anything, as far as I'm concerned. Because what is life? I mean, that's a label and a half too.
Right.
You know, not everybody is living that says they're alive. You know, it's like
Exactly.
so. As far as what inspires me a lot is how much you're living. That really inspires me. You're walking across the street with your computer. You're not refusing to take this label, looks like you did as a child with about your mom, your father. Wow, what an amazing hero he is.
He was.
Um, and what a beautiful thing to 3 girls losing their mom. What a strong, insightful person to have inspired you in such a way that that's one of the things that happens with Out of the Blue. You start to notice those things. Maybe had that not happened, you would not have noticed that. I don't
Right.
know. You know, we'll never know because it's a mystery. But go ahead and then tell us more about like even more Out of the Blue wonderful things or other things. The work related ones are interesting. You know, I mean, I've spoken to people too that said some of their most revealing Out of the Blue experiences had to do with finding jobs, getting
Mm.
work. And that's nothing, that's no small thing. I mean, so you have something to share about that. I mean, might be good to hear.
I mean, I think I have had amazing jobs and jobs that I truly loved. And most of those came in some ways. And, you know, I was at a job and was on maternity leave actually with my first child. And they said, well, I worked for the legislature, and they said, could you just sit on this committee? It's a really important committee over the summer. You can bring the baby, you know, whatever. And I'm sitting here with the baby at this important committee that was on affordable housing. And she started to cry. And so I got up to leave. And somebody holds up, let me see, somebody holds up a piece of paper, you know, like this. And on it, it says, hey, so-and-so is leaving. You want the job? Right. And I went, yeah. And so, you know, and out I go with baby crying. And, you know, obviously I needed to go interview and talk to this. And it was one of the most difficult and exciting roles that was all about budget and policy for the state of Connecticut. And, you know, it was an out of the blue ask for sure. And at a moment where, you know, I was, you know, I'd given birth like a couple of weeks before. I'm holding this crying baby. I'm
Oh, yeah.
thinking, how am I ever going to work and balance? Oh, yeah, sure, that sounds great. And, you know, in some ways took that role, which was very hard. And, you know, had to adopt some of those same qualities, like what's the cool stuff that I can learn here? What are the places that I can impact others? And how do I keep my bearings in a really crazy place? And, you know, keep laughing. So that was definitely one of my professional experiences
Yeah.
out of the blue. Yeah.
It's I can see that would have been extremely off. You were not expecting that offer, right? When your baby's crying, especially because you're a mom and you're a new mom.
Right.
Matter of fact, I think having a baby and then what happens to you after that is puts you in a very unique position
It does.
to receive out of the blue things, almost to accept them. Maybe they come, it's almost like they maybe are attracted to that vibe or something. I don't know if I'm right about that, but you just said something that makes me even further reinforces that little vibe. I thought that this thing of motherhood puts you in such a position that you're very sensitive. The universe is sort of looking at you differently. I don't know what it is, but
Yes.
you know, but something like that. It just proves something is out there, out there in the blue, wherever
Yeah.
the out of the blue things. And we were talking about this we before we started the show, and we'll talk about it now. Was that when these things happen, it isn't we don't think. I don't know if we think that some of these events, like having a child, that's a beautiful thing. Not necessarily out of the blue. You know you're pregnant. You know.
You have about 9 months to get used to it.
You know, you've got quite a bit. But no matter when, no matter even if that's true, and it is true, 99% of the time, I should say. But when you have the baby, it seems like an out of the blue thing because there is a human being, and you don't really expect that. You know it's going to happen. But when that child comes out of the womb and it's just there, it is fully. You can almost feel like I knew when my daughter Samantha was born, and I knew her whole being at that moment. There was no
Really?
like, sure she had to learn how to talk, sure she had to do all that stuff, but I knew her, you know, right at that moment when she was in my arms as a little teeny baby. And same
Sure.
thing for my son, other children too. It's weird how that is, and it's so I think I wonder about when you experience that during your pregnancy, and then they get this offer for this great job that expands you in a lot of ways, right? Tests you and challenges you. So, does it mean that this thing from out of the blue is trying to help us or something? Like when these things happen, sometimes the terrible ones, like you're getting diagnosed or anybody getting diagnosed, it's terrible. But that's not the thing that from out of the blue. The thing from out of the blue is of the energy, the strength, or the mindset that reached this event, so that when you get it, then the out of the blue takes over. The power of this out of the blue thing, because you seem like you've opened a channel to something greater than ourselves. I think that's what happens to me. It's like you don't know where these things are coming from, but it seems to have a little bit more going on than I do. You know, like
Mhm.
maybe
I
call it a
mean,
higher power or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I think that I see some people who they don't have the tools to deal with an out of the blue thing, whether it's health or whether it's
Mhm.
good or bad, right?
Yeah,
They don't necessarily have the tools, and maybe it's because they haven't experienced this in the past. Maybe it's because, you know, just not where they're at. So I actually think that some of what I had experienced in having to deal with something like, here it is, it's right in front of you. You have no choice. You have to deal with it. You can go down a hole or you can look ahead. Um, really, really helped me a year ago, right? Because I was able to just kind of draw on that and say, you know, I can I can sit, like people say to me, what? I don't understand. You're so upbeat or you're, and I'm like, should I be sitting in a corner and, crying every day? Like I may not have as much time as I thought. I need to go live a fun life, and a life filled with, joy and purpose. So, but again, I think that other people make different choices.
Well,
And it helps to surround yourself with people who sort of think the way you do.
yeah, I think that's important. I mean, I would like to think that I remember being in the hospital and the doctors we would always discuss things like when they're going to have a cure for cancer was the biggest one, right? And then laughingly, we'd all agree that yes, we want a cure for cancer. It's very difficult to even think of that because there's so many different types.
Right.
If you get into the brass tacks of that.
Right.
But we'd all agree on one thing. What we really need is a cure for stupid.
I'm with you there.
And I don't know if you can ever find that either. There's too many sources of that. I mean, there's too many ways you can be stupid. There's 1,001 ways to be stupid. Only one way to be smart. And I think that your response to the things that happen to you, I don't know what does that define you as? It defines you as one of those smart people because you've taken the event, whatever it is, whether it's getting a new job, or your mom dying, or getting stage 4 cancer. And it isn't the event that you think about. It's what you can do forward, what you're doing with it. How you responding to it.
May I ask Samantha a question?
Yes, you may.
Yeah, I'm over here. Yes.
So he had a significant out of the blue moment, but it was also an out of the blue moment for you and your siblings. And so, in a same and different way, right? I mean, he's dealing with the physical aspects of that, but you guys are dealing in a very different way. I know for me, one of the hardest things was to tell my kids, and I wonder how you three felt and how you all process that out of the blue for you.
It was really heavy, and in a lot of ways, I'm still kind of working through it. And that's I'm not obsessed with that about myself, but I mean, it's true. It's like, it's still definitely, I think about those chunks of time, like those many years as like, just like yesterday. And I can't totally remember much before it, honestly. And I'm personally going through a part of my life where I feel like a lot of things are out of the blue, and I love what you said about when it comes to you and like falls in your lap. Some people have the tools and some people don't, and I'm really kind of trying to get the tools, for this time in my life, this age in my life. And I think I can, and I am, but it is it's a lot. I'm feeling really heavy the past couple of years, if I'm honest. So when my dad was going through this, it was a really beautiful thing. I know my older sister and I, like, she is such a rock for me, and her and I came together in this crazy way with my mom, and this relationship of like three women that we didn't have much time to hone. Was really alive in 2020, and it was, I mean, me and Jackie look back at those years as that year as also beautiful, like how we came together just
Sure.
and with our matriarch,
Oh, yeah.
And it was really great. Like I'm really grateful for my sister in those years, and my mom. Just saying, my older brother couldn't be around us because he was house sitting my place in LA, and my cat. So that was just like an interesting, plot point. So it was just kind of like all of us finding ways to make this work. And it was beautiful because I realized that our base is love and joy and hope. And that is optimistic, but we have that. And like none of us accepted the worst. And, period. Like we really didn't. And it was just every single day. I'm sure like minute by minute, trying to get through this, and every minute was so full in a way. Yeah, that was a lot. It was really beautiful to see my dad too, who was going through like in the throes of this,
Horrible.
yeah, like just still answering the phone being super lucid and alive. And it was cute because I did a lot of acting training, and me and my dad came together when he was super, super ill. And I'm giving him these like acting meditations,
Oh,
and he's
love it.
doing them, and it was hard for him to go to sleep. And
They
there
were
was
very
a
helpful.
few that he loved, and it made me
Love
feel
it.
really important. Just kidding. But yeah, it was intense but
Yeah.
beautiful. And coming out on the other side. And I just can't. Me and my mom, this is another point too, just the way that me and my mom bonded. I don't know, I saw my mom as like completely on the same level as me, my best friend, getting through something. And like I could cry. Just everything I learned about like the inner workings of her mind and how she's processing this is like, that was my best friend who I needed. I don't know, I and then there's a point where whatever happened, I was okay with, you know what I mean? Just because I just needed her. Yeah. I just needed to be there for her and get through this with her. And it was a lot. It was a lot.
Well, you guys
So
were all,
thank you, Samantha. That was great. I really
yeah,
enjoyed
I mean,
that.
you had to
Very
be there for
inspiring to
him.
me.
You had to be there for her. You had to be there for each other. And yet you were dealing with
Yes.
your own stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yes.
remember.
Yeah. And sorry, at one point, my
Yeah.
own stuff, I was, I'm going to put it over there, and I was okay.
I used to call from the hospital. I was in there too long, right? And I remember calling from the hospital and using FaceTime, and they would put the phone on the table while they're
Mhm.
having dinner. So I'd be like, I'd have my dinner in the hospital,
Yeah.
and they'd have their dinner, and we had dinner together through FaceTime. And I'd tell you, it was fun. It was actually fun. And
Nice.
what the weirdest thing is, one of the best Christmas, we celebrate the holidays, we have a good time. The family gets together, we have lots of food, we sing songs, and it's a great time. We never had really don't remember a bad one. But I tell you, one of the ones that stands out in my mind the most was the time when I was in the hospital,
Mhm.
and they came after everybody had left. They had a little party for the holiday. Then they came into the hospital, into my room. They brought me some food, and we sat around and ate the food together. And then we started singing songs together. And it was in the hospital. It was like
Nice.
the most joyous thing I ever experienced, because I was, first of all, going through that, and and this is one of the things that helped me build that new self. I started to see this is so much more important than I knew it was important. I think I did. I always knew family was important, but to have it play out like that
Yeah.
is something to behold. It is just terrifyingly awesome and unbelievably incredible.
That's
And it's
really
like,
nice.
yeah, it just gives you a feeling of like almost it's indomitable. There's nothing more powerful than that kind of joy. And I
Yep.
think that
Yes.
I've learned that. I've learned the joy is powerful. It really is a powerful thing. And that's what I get, from you very much, Judy, is that
Nice.
you want that joy. You feel it, you look for it, you cultivate it, you curate it even. You want to have that joy. And I don't think, if anyone is going to learn anything from our podcasts with people from out of the blue, that's the main lesson right there, is to
Agree.
learn to take life each moment and look for all the best joy you can find in it, and curate moments like that and keep them going, cultivate them, encourage them. And if somebody comes in your life that they're not doing that, well, time to move on,
Bye.
Bye. Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. It's no harm, no loss, just no foul. We agree to disagree. Take a hike.
Yes. Yes.
But I think that you also need to find ways to find the right people, the tribe, the people that are on our wavelength. And I'm hoping that we can do that with Out of the Blue. We can stimulate that conversation and get people more and more coming together and realize we're all out of the Broosternauts, all of us. We're all floating in space and in this blue that we're out of.
I love it. I love it.
And every once in a while we
Oh.
get batted around by this thing. But But go ahead. You got more. I know you have more, Judy. You
Well,
have,
no, you know what? I was going to tell you that it's funny because you were talking about that holiday in the hospital. So for Thanksgiving, we usually grew up in Chicago. We usually all go to Chicago. And the funny thing is, I told my daughter in June, right as I learned this, sadly, we were in Paris for a mother, daughter, grandmother trip, and I had to tell her our first day, which was unfortunate. But so June, and somehow that what hit her was, well, she's not going to Chicago at Thanksgiving. I'm like, in June, this is what you were thinking? And she texted her cousins and said, hey, don't know if you've heard yet about my mom, but you all need to come to us at Thanksgiving. And we all need to do all that because I usually do all the cooking. We all need to do all the cooking because my mom is not doing this year. We're going to take over. And,
Well,
and, cousin, yes. And I'm like, what made you think of this in June? And it was sort of like, well, that's a touchstone with our family. And they all did come here, including like one of my sisters. I've a lot of sisters now, but one of my sisters who we don't usually see at Thanksgiving, she and her husband and daughter and her husband came. So there were like 23 of us in a big old house that we rented. And it was the only time during all the chemo and post, there were about 3 weeks after chemo where I felt horrible. And it was during that time. And I said to them all, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I've been great. And they're all looking at me like, what are you talking about? You were just making pies, like you look fine. I mean, you look a little gray, but and I had a turban on because I had no hair, but they're like, you're fine. And it was so joyful. And it was, I think everybody had been afraid. What would I look like? What would I feel like? How would I act? Would it change the dynamics of the family? All this stuff. And I was like, let's party, let's have fun. Um, and so I really understand you saying, it was just this wonderful moment, even though you're in a hospital and,
oh yeah.
you're not
You,
feeling
you,
well.
when you were mentioning that, it reminded me that I wasn't feeling so hot. There was definitely stuff going on physically that was pretty crappy. But
Yep.
but I don't even remember that. I
Yep.
remember the joy of us all being there. I remember that so clearly.
Same.
It's like it's one of those. I feel like I built my life on these golden bricks, the new bricks of my new
Love it.
life, and that's one of them. That's one of those golden bricks. It's part of my new life's foundation. Is
Love it.
that moment, and I build them on those moments, and I hope to do that with. I want to do that with this exact podcast. I do that with everything now. Everything I do, I want to be a brick of my life,
I love that.
and that's what I want to do. So I mean, that's my little goal in my out of the blue astronaut journey.
Strong foundation.
Yeah,
I love
strong foundation of things that are beautiful and loving, and I don't know if to me they're just great. I mean, you could give it all kinds of adjectives, but then when you have one, you just know it, because
Yep.
it gets your joy tingling all the way to your toes, and yeah, I found that joy is the most powerful thing in this world, and we forget that. I mean, that's kind of the thing I think I forgot before I had these events
Mm,
for me, working my butt off all the time, 24/7. Money seemed to be the only thing that had to happen. I was always, doing, even though I was doing things for money, I wasn't doing things I loved. It was to do with something creative or something of that nature, but it was still about how much am I making? And you got to work more to get more,
yeah.
you got to raise your amount you're making. But there's always that part of it that was ruled. But when after this happened, it became no more. I don't think about the money anymore. I think about the joy, the inspiration. That matters more to me. And I think when I think like that, money ceases to be a problem. It shows up. It does show up right when you need it. And
Neat.
I'm, it's weirdly weird to say that. And my wife would say, "Oh, you please," because she's always worried about the money. But I always tell her, I said, we're never going to have to worry about money. I'm telling you, don't worry about money anymore. And we don't, you know what? We don't. I don't. And I'm telling you, I have no worries about money for anything. I think this money is something that's so secondary to the whole picture. It's I think it's part of it, but it's not it. It may
Sure.
be like a sort of a leaves that grow out of it, but it's not it. The tree is something else. It's life that the joy and all that. But again, this is too much about me. I know I'm talking so much about myself. Maybe it's meant to be, but go ahead.
Meant to be.
I know you have a few more, at least one that you mentioned to me once in an earlier conversation that you had as an out of blue experience that was so wonderful. Something about when you met your husband.
Oh, right. Right. That was another one. Yeah, so I was in Chicago working, and he was in Connecticut working. And I went to a conference in Reno, Nevada.
Not
And
Connecticut and not Chicago.
not Connecticut, not Chicago.
No.
Nope. And walked in, and there, lowered the age of the room immediately by walking in. It was sort of very older gentlemen, and me and two women from Chicago. And there was this kind of cute guy across the room. And apparently he thought the same. And it's Reno, so there, after your meetings, there really wasn't much to do except sit in a casino. He had no idea what he was doing there. And he'd kind of, groups of people would sort of go to dinner or what have you. And he found a way to sit next to me. And anyway, he said, "Do you want to go for a walk?" And 8 months later, I was living in Hartford, Connecticut.
Wow, that's a pretty awesome out of the blue thing, and really powerful, right? It took you right off
Totally out
your.
of the blue. And 37 years later, we're married. So had I, not walked into that room in Reno, Nevada, totally different life, right?
Would you never thought that going there, I bet.
I mean, it was opening a door to a completely different life.
That's a beautiful out of the blue event right there.
Yep. Yeah.
So would you say that do you notice a thread going through the out of the blue events? You see some sort of thread. Do you notice anything like that?
I mean, again, for me, it's been about I guess in a lot of ways, just taking a leap. So, like knowing that it's okay to take a leap. And by the way, you could fail when you take a leap, and that's okay because you got it in, I feel like I've got it in me to manage that. Or you can succeed, right? I mean, my job that I'm currently in that I love, that is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I've been doing it for 9 years, and I saw this, I don't know, ad for it. And I wrote a note that said, I've never heard of this university. I have no interest in living on Long Island, but this job is written for me. Like, this describes me, and I'd love to talk to you. Now, that's not the usual way to go after.
I love it, love it,
like
love
it.
it. I love it, love it, love it.
Yeah. And a few weeks later, I had an offer and we moved here. And so I think that for me, what runs through a lot of the out of the blue is, for me, is not being afraid to either like handle the painful parts or embrace the hard parts and the happy parts, right? And you have to kind of make choices along those way. So that's, to me, what flows through.
That's the
And
thread.
rely on your foundation. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And
interesting.
know that, you might make a mistake, right? I might have moved to Hartford, Connecticut and said, "Oh, this was a huge mistake." So you go back. You built something else, right?
It really does come down to taking the leap. Yeah. And when you're talking about something out of the blue, you are really talking about leaping into the blue. It's just, you don't
It
know
is.
when you're gonna land, if you're
Right.
gonna land, if
Right.
you're gonna bounce, nothing is guaranteed.
Nothing's guaranteed.
You
So
know,
figure
that's
out how you're gonna, what are the tools that you've got to manage it?
Wow.
so in a way, inadvertently, out of the blue, things give us tools.
I think so.
Yeah. So maybe Samantha, you might say that too. I mean, I remember when I was in the hospital, I had just been diagnosed, and I was in there for I used to go in for 3 weeks at a time. I'd never been in the hospital my whole life. Now I'm in there 3 weeks at a time every time I go in. So I'm in there, and they get me hooked up to junk, putting stuff in me and everything. And they get a phone call. It's Samantha, and she said, and she wants to talk to me just about being a dad. She said, I'm having a little relationship issue here, and I'm going to talk to you about it, Dad. And I was like, oh, yes, this
Yeah.
is what I want to do. It made me leave that room. I was
Right.
no hooked up to these things. I was a dad again, and I
Yes.
was being a functioning human being, providing useful service.
Yes. Yeah.
Always.
But I
Yes.
think it's so you kind of went through it too. I know my family did. It's hard not to know that. We all know that. Anybody that's been uh, hit with one of these things, you were very mindful of what it's doing to your family. I mean, I was, and I
Very
look
much
at
so.
I know, and I look at them and I think they're all miracles. I mean, they've come around from it, and they've been made better from it. They've made interesting. Well, everything wasn't peaches and cream always. You go through shit. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. Sorry if you're bleeping me. I'm not going to bleep that. It's just a word. But yeah, we go through shit, and when you go through shit, sometimes you just have to, and as on the way through it, it sort of polishes you. It's like putting a stone in a tumbler. It
Yes.
goes through, it goes through all this tumbling and stuff, but when it comes out, it's nice and shiny. So I think that's what we do in our lives. When out of the blue things happen, we really are that stone in the tumbler, just rolling around. And next thing you know, someone says, "Stop the machine. Let me see." Just a shiny little pill. You look shiny, but not shiny enough. We're gonna get another one for you. Because
That's funny.
there's
Like really
always
fun to go
another.
through.
Life is full of tumblers. There's always another tumbler waiting.
It's a
But
good way to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're almost nearing our closing time here. So I will maybe leave it with that. We'll say, thank you, Judy Greiman, for your incredible, inspiring take on Out of the Blue and your inspiring life and how you are of living it and looking for joy all the time. And thank you, Samantha. You gave us some great insights too into the families of people who go through Out of the Blue situations. And
Mhm.
and I'm going to say to everyone listens, please join us again anytime we come back. We go back with more episodes, but you can play this episode over and over again because I'm sure you'll hear more and more good things. And thank you for
Yeah,
joining us. What,
I just want to
Samantha?
jump in really quick and say, a takeaway for me is your sentiment about having the tools and just trusting that you do, not being, scared before out of the blue experiences. Like I truly, that's a core takeaway for me. So thank you for sharing
That's
that.
great.
I truly needed to hear it. So thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. That's great.
Oh,
Good.
I'm glad too. And thank you for joining us. I'm Vernon West. This is Samantha West and Judy Greiman, our guest. And this has been Out of the Blue.
Thank you.
Out of the Blue, the podcast, hosted by me, Vernon West, co-hosted by Samantha West, edited by Joe Gallo, music and logo by Vernon West III. Have an Out of the Blue story of your own you'd like to share? Reach us at info@outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. Subscribe to Out of the Blue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and on our website, outoftheblue-thepodcast.org. You can also check us out on Patreon for exclusive content.